shelters for animals. Putting
I'm
blankets
in
on ponies.
favor.
Yeah, there you go. Putting blankets. What's your thoughts on putting blankets on ponies and such like that?
No, why do you look at me?
You have the floor.
Because most people in the past, they've asked, why don't you blanket your horses? Because we have such horrible winters. That's a fantastic question. Thanks for asking. In South Central Montana, where we're at, we don't blanket. You can see, here's Bentley, our stallion, with his two little girls that he sired this year. And they got a pretty thick coat. Let's check out our hands here. You can see he's nice and thick and soft, but letting nature do its course. We found if you let them go with a blanket, it actually tends to minimize the hair growth, and then it ends up working actually not in your favor. So we let them go just barebacked, and they made it through 20-degree below zero weather with a real feel of 50 below, and they did just fine. It wasn't comfortable, but they made it. This episode's coming out in mid-October, so it's starting to get cool. It's gonna, if it hasn't snowed already, it's about to. So these are pretty important things for the horses and the cows now. And then in a couple of months, in the springtime when they start to calve, it'll be important for the babies too. So the thoughts on using shelters for animals like lean-tos, open face lean-tos, blanketing the ponies, stuff like that.
So regarding the blanketing of the ponies, should I tell you what your father says to me every time I make any kind of suggestion?
No, because I'm pretty sure we've actually covered that before, but I'd like to hear what your thoughts are.
He says to me, they have lived millions of years out in the wild and they will be fine. I, on the other hand,
Here comes Darius, her thought finally. She has to preface it with everything that I say wrong.
I, on the other hand, think everybody should have some comforts, like out of the wind, shelter, blankets. I understand why Dad doesn't think the blankets are a great idea, biologically, because it does alter. It's going to get wet. It's going to make them colder, and they do okay. And the whole thing.
The two big points with it is it changes their hair growth, which then, they don't have enough hair to keep themselves warm. But then the more important one that we're concerned about is the wet, heavy snows. They get hypothermic and then it can kill them. But
and like you look at in the wintertime, if there's snow on the back of a horse or a cow, that means that they're keeping that heat in. It's insulating.
Yeah.
But I would like to have shelters. I would like to have some open face shelters. Especially in the predominant winter wind direction, because we just don't have a whole lot. We do have contour in the land, but there's places and times where those animals just have nowhere to go. And
especially with a wind.
Especially with the wind. Just like us. It can be 20 below outside and no wind, and yeah, it's cold, but it's not bad. You add a little bit of a wind to it, and that's a game changer, especially as animals age, the really young and the old.
Yeah.
And we're doing some changes on that big steel building out there. We should have some steel available to maybe make a shelter or two.
It's possible.
One of these days.
So, nice. Calen, what's possible mean to you? What's the chance? Is that a snowball's chance in hell, or
no? That's not. Don't. Hey, you're starting to make fun of not just Dad but also me, so I don't appreciate it.
Well, yeah, you two are pretty much the same.
I think when we got some extra time, we'll get around to it. It'll happen. So the next 5 to 10 years.
And the materials now.
20, 30, never.
Having some of these materials will help.
Yeah. But it's also now I guarantee Dad's thinking the same thing I am. You got to find out the right location to do it because it can't be close to a fence because that's how horses get torn up. And it can't be super small and confined like the length of a horse. Otherwise, again, horses are going to get torn up like fighting over it. So it's got to be a little lengthy and open face so that they don't tear into each other. And inevitably, they're going to get themselves hurt anyway because it's a horse. So you got to try and dehorse it as best you can.
Yeah.
And the horses can come in, but these open face sheds are really good for calving, especially calving heifers.
Yeah.
They can get some shelter, and it doesn't have to be fancy, just has to work. And that's easily doable. The tin's expensive, but used tin that we already have, that really makes a lot of difference. So, we can put up some pole frame and make it quite simple and, get, start out with about a, 10 deep or 12 deep by, 24 long. Put some posts every 12 feet. And I think it'll make a lot of difference. You can put a couple of those up. Shoot, that's a lot. That makes a lot of difference.
Yeah. And I would say, as for like the calving part, I've been on some friends' places where they had essentially a bigger open face, 3-sided lean-to, and they had all the calving jugs and the head catch all in that. So you weren't in the barn and you weren't anywhere near where it's warm, but the 3 sides helped keep you out of the wind, and you could bring the cows directly from the corrals right into that little jug system, pull the calf if you need to, or let her hang out there with a calf for 24 hours or so and then kick her out. And that worked fine too. But
yeah,
that
provided
was also,
you don't have to warm a calf up.
Right. Yeah. That's assuming you don't need to do that. But that was relatively, I would say, inexpensive, understanding, it's still materials, but they were essentially rough cut 2x6s with, I think, tar paper on the sides and some tin on top. And that was it.
Yeah.
But very doable.
Yeah.
What about cows? Do you blanket the cows?
No.
Why not? Why wouldn't you want to do that?
They have a lot thicker hide, a lot more hair.
Oh, so now you're justifying why you would want to do it. You just don't want to fight them.
I don't want to fight them either. No, that's true.
Here's something I don't know about is showing cows. Do people blanket some of their cows if they're show cows?
No, they just clip them because you're showing in the summertime anyway.
Well,
generally are nice.
I've seen kids blanket a cow at the show arena just to make sure they don't get poop and stuff all over them. And keep them clean after they've been bathed.
Stuff. Yeah. Because they get all sorts of floofy and they look good.
Yeah.
They do. They look really cute when they're all down.
Yeah. What about shelters for the puppies? Should we keep shelters for the puppies?
What are you talking about? They live in the house.
Yeah, the expensive shelter.
Yeah. They have to have access into the house because they can't be cold.
Just because your pug can't regulate heat doesn't mean that Mother Nature shouldn't take over.
Well, really?
Are you talking survival of the fittest?
You're stepping on some pretty
delicate
areas here. You better be careful there.
All right, with that, we'll take that conversation and put out special.